things that I wanted to do was talk about why I wrote some of my books. And the first one I'm going to do is None So Blind. Okay, forever I have called this book Ella. And it'll be kind of odd because when you read like the synopsis or whatever, because it talks about Daniela Weeks and you're like, okay, so her nickname is Ella, but the book opens and her name is Danny, and that's because of the change that she takes. And so, you know, why I wrote it, I to be honest, I don't remember for sure, but I know what either sparked it in my mind or actually prompted it. A friend and I used to joke about what would happen if you just, you know, we'd have cluttered houses and stuff, and, you know, it's just there, and you get used to it. And, you know, we had lots of little kids and lots of little kid stuff, and I remember we just were like, if we could just move and only bring into our new house the things that we actually wanted and used and needed, we could just leave the rest of that stuff gone. I mean, and we actually talked about, you know, like renting those big pod things and moving vans and putting it all in storage and going, if you had to go get it, you knew you needed it. I mean, we're both a little extreme. And so I remember saying, but you know, the worst of it is that our habits are the ones that really matter to me. You know, they're the things that I have a hard time breaking, a hard time overcoming. And I was like, if you could just do that, you know, just only do the things that really matter with those, it would be awesome. But you can't just leave the old ones at a storage shed and go get them when you need them, right? And she was like, oh, yeah. You know, and she's like, it'd be great if you could just forget how to do everything, have to relearn what was only important. And I was like, well, actually, you know, I had just finished Discovering Hope, and I'd done a lot of research on traumatic brain injury. And I was like, people with traumatic brain injury sometimes have to do that. It's not the same for everybody. That was the hardest part of that research, is that it's not the same for everybody. Everybody has something different. And yes, I talk with my hands. But I remember thinking, that's really interesting. What would happen if you did forget everything? And not necessarily how to do things, but forget what you usually do. Because the problem with habits is that whole muscle memory thing. The brain is a muscle, and it has its little memory, and it does its right. And so I was like, if you could just, you know, forget what you usually did and have to focus only on what you want to do, because you don't have this other thing that's just slipping in there. And I remember there was just so many little things. I remember thinking, it would be awful to forget your family, though. And I'm like, but how neat to fall in love with your husband again. And then my brain was like, yeah, but what if you didn't? You know, I mean, that would be kind of scary. You wake up and you're not married. I mean, you're married to someone that you don't even know. I mean, that's worse than an arranged marriage, in my opinion, because you can't run before the I do, right? You're stuck. And then it all just kind of morphed for me, because then I started thinking about things like, well, okay, if you don't remember the vows you made, are they binding? And I was like, well, isn't that part of like the sickness and in health? But some people would, you know, say the one thing and the other. And that's one of the things that I try to do in my fiction that people sometimes don't understand. I don't write characters who do what I think they should do. I don't write characters who believe what I believe. Sometimes they believe things I disagree with. And that's why some of my characters will disagree with each other. Because this is part of Christianity, right? This is part of who we are. We both read the same Bible, and we understand it differently. And I want to show that. And I try to be very careful, because it's not that I don't think truth matters, and that I don't think that the Bible has a specific truth for us. I truly believe that. I don't think the Bible is just relative to however we feel about it. But another truth is that two people can read that same passage in context and get something not completely different. You know, Jesus is God, Jesus is not God. Well, if Jesus is not God, you're not a Christian, and so there, you know, it becomes this big old deal, right? But I want to show that in my characters, and so sometimes my characters believe things that I don't believe. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and try to figure out which ones I want, because my point isn't to push what I believe. My point is to go to the Bible, study the Bible, read the Bible, see what God says, and apply it. And if you're wrong, He'll show you eventually. You'll figure it out if you listen and if you read, right? And so, I mean, I can tell you how many times I was sure about this one thing, and the Lord said, you're cute. What about that verse? And I mean, sometimes it's just this one Greek word in a verse that I find out, and 20 years after understanding scripture to be this way, I don't completely understand it in a different way, but I do understand it in a new, fresh way, and it allows for things I didn't think it did, or it doesn't allow for things that I think it did. And sometimes we're talking major things. I mean, we had to leave a church over it, not because we couldn't fellowship with them, but because we didn't want them and their children to be confused by this. It's a small, I mean, I don't want to say it's insignificant, that's not true. It's a small little deviation from what we had always believed, but it's huge in practice. And they just, we weren't going to do that to them. We tried to show respect for them, and we tried to, treat their faith with respect, because it's not that they're wrong in what they believe, in our opinion. It's that there's a little more to it, and that was just pretty cool. So it's one of the things that I wanted to do. Well, that kind of thing really morphed the story. The story became a little more suspenseful, a little more mysterious, and just a hint ominous when I threw in things that I didn't expect. The story was done. I mean, I had this thing done, and it's time to go to publish, so I go to reread it, and I'm like, oh, I need to fix that. And as I'm fixing that, these lines come in, and these lines send my brain to here, and so I wormed this one in, and then I wormed that one, and the next thing I know, it's not a completely different book. It's exactly the same book, but it had a lot more richness and depth and, excitement. And then, I wanted to tell you about the cover, because this cover, to me, is so cool. This obviously is a mirror, right? And she's looking at herself in the mirror. If you can notice, this hairstyle is and she's broader. I actually had this, we know these people. My daughter took this picture. I don't usually do that. I usually buy stock photos, but I had a very specific thing I wanted, and I wasn't able to create it out of stock photos. So we actually did a cast call, and we know these people. My kids go to church with them, and so I was like, you're not really wide enough. How often do people hear that one, right? I was like, but I can stretch you a bit, And so, I mean, this is her daughter, and so it really worked to have her looking at her younger self, because in the book, this is how she sees herself, and she's, 15, 20 years older. And so I really, that was just a fun little, guess what, about the book, about the book cover. I love cover design, and I'm probably going to make sure that all of these have a little bit about how I came up with the cover. And I like the background. If you'll notice, there's this little background. I liked it because, there's all these little cracks, and there's this light that comes up behind it, and it just kind of shows the little nuances of the story. Here's the back of the book. My backs of the books aren't quite usually that boring, but it's sufficient, and it has what it needs, and if I had put anything else in there, it would have been too much. So I'm really glad it was boring, but it is a little rather boring, isn't it? But anywho, this is None So Blind. It's about Daniela Weeks and what happens when she wakes up and doesn't remember herself. She remembers things, how to make an egg, but she doesn't necessarily remember the order of making an egg, or that she should, make the egg before the toast kind of thing. That scene is in there. And then this book right now is in a collection on Kindle. It's I Heart You, 5 contemporary romance novels. And my novel is the kind of odd ball in that this is an unusual romance. This woman is married, and she doesn't know or love her husband. And so it's all about them. It's all about her becoming attracted to another man. And what does the Bible say about that? Is she married? Isn't she married? I have very strong opinions on whether she is or isn't, and obviously they come out in here. I can't always keep my opinions out and let the characters have their own thing. Some character is usually going to come in and voice mine. But, and it's just about, kind of learning to love what you have, isn't that kind of important? So you can get this book. It's 99 cents for all 5 books. The other authors are, again, sit down. The other authors are Lynette Bonner, Amanda True, Carol Mankato, and Diane Adams. And I tried to go in reverse order, and I almost made it. Anyway, and they're all, until about the end of April, I believe, they're all 99 cents. That book is in there. They're all novels. And At the end, you get sneak peeks of coming books, and the sneak peek for mine is book 2, which comes out in June. I'm so excited. June 2017. For those who are watching this, 4 years from now, why they would, I don't know, but hey, thanks for watching, and you have a great day. See you next time.